Today, we'll see how to use the time-lapse mode on the Dji Osmo Action 3. Let's do this. So the first thing you will do is to turn on your camera, of course, and once it's on, you swipe from left to right with your finger up to Hyperlapse. Well, actually it's Hyperlapse. Sometime it can be. You can change it just right here. You swipe up your finger, you got Hyperlapse over here, and you got Timelapse over here. So now when I travel over here, I've got the time-lapse. So the first thing that is very important to know is what is a time-lapse and what is an hyperlapse, because both give a different result and need to be used the right way. So a time lapse, for example, this is a time lapse. So I place my camera on a stable object or on a tripod and I film this for several minutes to give this very short video where you can see everything accelerated. Now the hyperlapse is kind of similar but different because the hyperlapse is moving. So like in this example, I'm in the same area, but I am moving, I am walking with the camera. So the camera does a stabilization on your movement, so everything looks sharp and like if the camera was flying on the street. So this is what the hyperlapse is made for. Because if you try to do this with the time-lapse mode, you end up with something like this. You don't want to look at something like this. It looks terrible. That's what it does when you try to do a time-lapse and moving with it. It's not stabilized, it's not lookable. Now you may ask myself, why don't you just leave it on hyperlapse? Because it stabilizes everything? Because it will over try to stabilize. So if, for example, I try to do a time lapse in hyperlapse mode, as you can see, the camera is kind of moving and try to stabilize something that should not be. So very important, time-lapse, stable camera, hyperlapse, moving camera. And usually you try to move forward, not in any other direction. Well, you can try, but usually you do that forward. Might be good also backward. Anyway, so once we know that, let's go see the option that we have over here. So you will find the option by swiping up from the very bottom. And yes, we've got time-lapse here and hyperlapse, but let's start with the time-lapse mode. You will see that on the upper left corner, there is that moon that can be disabled and enabled. This is a power saving mode. So when you do have that moon turned on, that will basically just turn off the screen after 10 seconds when you start the recording of your time lapse. So this will give you more battery to record your time lapse. The other option that we have on top here is the 4K. So this is to change the resolution. You have the option between 1080p, which is HD. You've got 2.7K and 4K. I leave it on 4K. I think that today, even if you don't want to record everything in 4K, in a time lapse, you record for such a long period of time and end up with a very small file because it's accelerated. Yeah, just use the 4K because anyway, it will be a small file. It just makes more sense in my head to use 4K all the time. I film everything in 4K, but even if you don't film everything in 4K, I would shoot my time lapse in 4K. But anyway, you do what you want. Next one, under this, we've got custom, sunset, and crowds. Crowds and sunset are basically just preset. As you can see here, it will record for 10 minutes at a 2 seconds interval. And if we go on crowd, it's 10 minutes and every half a second, and sunset is for an hour with a 3 seconds interval. They are just preset. It doesn't record a better sunset or anything. It's just a preset. So I always use custom and then I swipe up again, and then here I can choose the interval. So that goes from half a second to 40 seconds. Then you can choose the video duration. I usually leave it on 2 seconds, and then if I need, I just accelerate my video. Then you've got the video duration. You can set it so that it stops after 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or 5 hours. That's up to you. But I just always leave it on infinite, because when I start my time lapse, if something interesting happened and I want to continue, I just want to give myself this option. So I will just stop it when I want it to stop. And when you do the recording, so I press the red button on top to start the recording, and I will have just right here, you see, it says it's on infinite mode, and actually my video lasts 0 seconds. So because I'm recording an image every 2 seconds, and there is 30 frames per second in a video, in the video that it record, I will need 1 minute to get 1 second of video footage. So if you pick every half second, you're gonna have 120 frames per minute. So this gives you 4 seconds per minute. So you can do the calculation. But actually, it probably doesn't make 1 minute yet. So still it's 0 seconds. And we will see 1 second eventually, well, after a minute. So this will give you the length of your final clip. Let's stop this and go see the other options. Well, that's it for the time lapse. The hyperlapse is expressed a bit differently. So you got X2, so that's the speed. You can go up to speed X30, so 30 times faster. This one is calculated, so if it's 30 times faster, this means that it will record 1 frame per second. And if we go to rate X2, it will record 1 frame on 2. So this will be 15 frames per second. Or you can also go on auto. I'm not convinced when I see the title auto, but it's pretty well made. So for example, if I start that recording, here I'm on auto mode. So if you move forward and for a reason you start to go slower or faster, it will adjust the frame rate so it looks more fluid. It's not perfect. Let's see that example that I did in my loft yesterday. I was walking fast, slow, fast, slow, fast, slow. You can see it in the video, but it's less obvious than what I did. And there is that feature over here. If I press here, it turns to X1. So this means that we are in real speed. So if you are in the middle of something, you're recording something, you go forward and, oh, I want to film this. You go on X1 and then you can film it and then go back to auto, just like that. And then you keep doing your hyperlapse. That's kind of interesting. Let's stop that. Do we have some other features to see here? No, that's pretty much it. The other one that you can find are on the menu just right here on the right. This one just right here. And we've got format. It's actually in video, so it will record a video that is already a time lapse. You can also record it on video plus JPEG. I've just discovered it. It's probably very interesting because you will have the video plus the JPEG. So usually on the image, you might tweak it a little bit more on a photo editing software. You can also record it on RAW or just video. Actually, I'm just using video. I think it does a pretty great job. You can also change how wide you want your video to be, and you can modify the white balance and the exposure. Seriously, it done a very good job automatically. I always leave it on auto, and I never been unsatisfied of the result. I never had some fluctuation into the middle of the video that ruined the shot. Automatic mode works just very good, but if you really want to go on auto, let's for example go on exposure. Here you can set it to manual, and change the obturation speed and the ISO. You cannot change the focal because it is fixed on that camera. You can do the same thing for the white balance. You can go in manual and choose the temperature you want, or just leave it on auto white balance. Well, once it's done, you just press the red button on top to start recording your time-lapse or your hyperlapse. So I hope this was helpful. Go do something awesome and have fun with your camera. See ya!